All right, a very special edition of the Industry 45 podcast show for Giant TV Niagara. Just a reminder, you can access Giant TV Niagara by going to gianttv.ca, giantfm.com, country89.com, and also now you can check out this podcast show at musiclifemagazine.net. Very special guest today. His name is Redmond. He's a touring recording drummer for multi-platinum country rocker Jason Aldean. He's got 27 number one hits to his credit. He's played to millions of fans around the world, arenas, stadiums, you name it. He's got over 20 years experience in the music business. Lives in Nashville, Tennessee. Not only experience with Jason Aldean, but he's either toured, recorded, or performed with the likes of Bryan Adams, Bob Seger, Chris Cornell, Joe Perry, Miranda Lambert, Luke Bryan, Keith Urban, Florida Georgia Line, Alabama, Kenny Rogers. The list goes on, and he's got great drumming credentials. And not only that, but he's an author. He's got a book called Crash Course for Success, 5 Ways to Supercharge Your Personal and Professional Life. A great book. We're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about playing with Jason Aldean a little bit. Of course, Jason goes on tour at the end of this month, starting in South Carolina. Talk a little bit about his drum gear. And he is a sideman, right? So I'd be interested to hear his story as a sideman, working with the other 2 sidemen in Jason's band, and also his thoughts on Hired Guns, which was a documentary that came out in 2016. We're going to talk about drumming in the modern world, which is super awesome. You can check it out, drumminginthemodernworld.com. We're also going to talk about working with Nia Czar. I interviewed Nadia for this show, and she is from the University of Windsor. She does all kinds of research on drummers as athletes and ergonomics and all that stuff, so maybe we'll dive into that as well. And I'd love to get, of course, Rich's take on the great Neil Peart and what he meant to him and his drumming career. It's coming up right now. Don't go anywhere. Super pumped for this Industry 45 podcast show. Redmond, and it's next. All right, real excited for this edition of the Industry 45 podcast show, because not only am I a fan of country music, obviously I'm a drummer, but on the phone, Mr. Redmond. See, you don't need Jim McCarthy, buddy.
What's up? How are you, man?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic.
So you're getting on the bus tonight to head out on a tour. Yeah. I want to talk to you, though. You know, you're a longtime veteran of the music business. Moved to Nashville some time ago. I guess my first question is, when did you realize as a musician it was going to be important to be in a place like Nashville, like a music city, to further your career? Because you got a great story how you auditioned for someone in Nashville, but you weren't living there at the time, correct?
Right. No, it really is imperative if you want to do what I do at this kind of level, where you're connecting with like real recording artists that are part of the fabric of the music industry. Recording records and then hooking up with those artists and taking the music to the people on tour. You kind of have to be in places like, New York, Los Angeles, Nashville, or, your Torontos and Vancouvers. It's good because that's the watering hole. That's where musicians connect. So I knew that by my 3rd audition in Nashville, where people were like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "Dallas, Texas." And they're like, "Ooh, okay." So that's when sometimes you have to make a massive life change, to get to the next tier on the ladder.
So you did a lot of things before you made it big with Jason. You played with him right from the beginning, correct? Right from the ground roots of everything. When did you feel as a musician, I guess, that you made it? Like, first time you heard your song on radio, or when did you say, you know what, I've made it in this business? Because you weren't always just playing music, right? You were waiting tables and you were doing everything to try to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been making money making music since probably 1987, 17 years ago. So for 33 years, I've made money from my craft. And sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes when you're working in a market where you're in Dallas, I was playing super churches, and I was playing on jingles, and I was playing in fusion bands, and I was playing in top 40 bands, and weddings and bar mitzvahs, and you just work, and sometimes it's still not enough. When I moved to Nashville, I had to supplement my income with all that stuff, waiting tables, parking cars, substitute teaching. And I had a master's degree in music and tons of experience. And so sometimes, you just have to supplement. But yeah, I met a young Jason Aldean in 1999, and we did about 40 showcases to get him signed. And then when it happened in 2004, we recorded the first record, and we have been essentially on tour since for 16 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did you and you've always had pretty much the same band, right? Like the Three Kings have been together forever.
Yeah, I've been playing with Kurt and Tully since 1999. So we're celebrating, like, what is that? 21 years of playing together.
That's
and
crazy.
Yeah, so we were always, Jason's band, and in the 5 years between 1999 and 2004, we had our own record deal with a group called Rushglow, and we did about 1 million showcases for up and coming artists in Nashville, and played on custom records and demos and publishing demos. And so we always had something going on to where we could work our craft and cultivate our relationship.
And when you speak about relationships, so, it's great that you're a touring drummer for a major act, but man, there's nobody as busy as you. You're teaching, you got your book out. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you've done. Crash, can you give us the history of Crash? And I do have your book, by the way, in front of me, and I have read it twice, not even once, twice.
Thank you so much. Well, that book is kind of like a labor of love. It's part self-help, like a Tony Robbins type book, and it's also a kind of like a sort of a memoir. Not a true memoir. I don't think you could write a memoir before you're 60. So I got some more stuff to do before I write my legitimate memoir. But it's a cool book, and you can get it on Amazon, like as a digital book, as a physical book, or you can go to audible.com and I read the book to you, so you can take me with you to the gym or on your commute. And so that's really fun. The audible.com is really getting very, very popular. But yeah, I just try to stay busy doing things. I've always been interested in acting. In the last 4.5 years, I've been studying that, and I already got my SAG card and was in a horror film on Netflix, and I was on a television show with Christopher Maloney, and I was playing a cop. That was really, really fun. So I'm studying that, working on that. And then all around that, doing my corporate motivational speaking for Fortune 100 companies. And then I continue to do sessions for other people. And occasionally I'll write songs and produce artists if they're really passionate. And I think I'm going to enjoy myself working with them. And then when I'm on the road, Jason, during the day, I do my drum clinics at colleges and music stores and drum shops. So
right, because
really fun.
When we connected a couple of summers ago, it was in Toronto. Steve's Music, you were doing a drum clinic.
Steve's Music,
yeah. And you were playing in Toronto at the Budweiser stage that night. So let me ask you this, just for anybody who sits there and says, what is life like, when you're on a major tour? So for you, and it's going to be different for everybody, what is a day like for you? You're getting up today, you're going to play. You're going to play in South Carolina tonight, and so you get up. What does your day look like personally? Do you go to the gym? Do you go for a run? What does your day look like?
Yeah, I always try to get something physical activity. So it might be me going to an LA Fitness or an Orange Theory. So I pay those memberships so I can use them anywhere in the country. And then I also carry like slam balls and weights and yoga mats under the bay of the bus. So if we're playing some middle of nowhere festival, I can still pull those things out and get a workout. And I like to run. I like to run the steps in the arena or run around inside the arena if the elements aren't very nice. But if the elements are nice, I like to take in the outsides too and get that runner's high. So I do that. And I just booked like 8 or 9 drum clinics, for February and March. So if I have to do that, I might be pulling into the city at like, say, 7 or 8 in the morning. And then I'll get up and have a little breakfast, shower, and then somebody from the drum shop or the college will pick me up, and I'll go sound check, and I'll teach. And then that host will drive me back to the arena, might have a lunch, sound check time. Then after sound check, I'll probably work on my other businesses, book podcast guests, or just kind of trying to keep my life in order. And then we have dinner together, usually as a band.
Nice.
And then I have to play a VIP show, so for the people that pay the extra money, they'll see a little VIP show, and I usually play like a cajon or a djembe, or some sort of fun hybrid thing like that. And then we got some time to kill. We bond as a band. I warm up, and then it's time to do the show. And then it's kind of some version of Groundhog Day every day, but it's exciting. Like something will always be different. I might have a day where I have no teaching to do, and all I have to do is really, go to that LA Fitness and work on my businesses or try to relax, stretch. I might go, from 16 years of touring the United States, I have friends in every city, so they'll be like, "Hey, what are we doing today? We're going to go have a nice lunch. Is it a museum day?" There's always something fun to do, and it usually has to do with people. I love people,
Absolutely. And so is the work part of it, is it pretty consistent? Like you have people setting your stuff up, obviously, and you do your sound check. Is it pretty the same thing pretty much every gig, though? As far as
with Jason?
Yeah, like just...
Yeah, the stuff, Jason is like a vacation, because it's like we've got a band that we got a band that, we have amazing techs, and then we have people setting up our gear. There's, 4 meals a day if we want, and we have a beautiful crew, and the fans are already there. They're true believers, and you just have a great time. It's like it truly is a vacation. It's all the other stuff that is, is a time suck, booking speeches. So if your company hired me to do a speech, I've got to make sure that there's a set of drums that are going to be there, what the travel situation is going to be, where's my lodging, who's running sound. Then I customize the speech for that client. So if they're a digital marketing company versus a farmer versus like a jeweler, like it's all going to have a slightly different message, because I customize the speech to that audience. So just doing something like that is just a lot of work. And then my podcast, The Rich Redmond Show, on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube, very well, being a host, you have to be over-prepared and know everything about your guest. Right. And then doing the interview is exhausting. I did 4 yesterday when I came home and was asleep in a puddle of drool on my couch at like 9:30 p.m. It takes a lot of mental energy to lead a conversation. And
speaking of your podcast, this morning I was driving to an appointment, and I listened today to the one that you did with Lindsay L, which was I just saw it today. I don't know when it came out, but recently, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that just came out yesterday. So we're having a good time. It's just basically it's a hybrid of a morning radio show and a late night talk show. And my goal is just that everybody within 45 minutes to an hour, they laugh, they cry, they learn something, they're inspired, they're entertained. And it's probably one of the most fulfilling things I've done in the last 10 years.
And it's a joy to listen to. You talk to a lot of really cool people, obviously, but just your conversations, and, Jim adds a lot of humor to it, and really a lot of fun for a guy like me, driving to work, and, you get educated at the same time about people, and I didn't know that artist did this or that artist did that. And yeah, just really cool. So if you're listening, make sure you check out the Rich Redmond podcast. What else do I want to ask you? Talk about drumming in the modern world, drumminginthemodernworld.com. So you put that together some time ago, correct? And maybe speak to that.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I planned it and filmed it in late 2014, and I think we were done with it in 2015. So it's already coming up on I let my hair go gray. I got a beard now. I don't dress differently. I don't even look like myself. And it's so funny, because I would look back at these DVDs or these VHS tapes of guys like Kenny Aronoff or Rod Morgenstein, and you're like, oh my God, this was 25 years ago. They look completely different. I'm already feeling that. But the content holds up. It's basically a 5.5 hour online educational training system, and it's essentially a subscription. So I think what it's going for right now is $2.99. So you pay a one-time fee of $2.99, and you have a lifetime access to 5.5 hours of training. And it's everything from me, deconstructing the Aldean drum parts to 15 other artists that I've recorded with over the years in Nashville. I got 7 camera angles, and then there's lessons how to tune and how to play percussion and how to set up your click track and how to get work as a drummer and keep work and how to chart songs and what the Nashville number system is all like. So it's a lot of practical, you want to be a professional drummer? Okay, well, these are the things that nobody else is talking about. So you could go to richredmond.com and you just sign up for the program right there. And I think you can also type in drumming in the modern world.com.
So speaking of drums, quickly on this. So do you have 2 sets of drums for this tour? You posted a photo with a black set and a red set, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, we always have 2 drum sets kind of cased up, and there's other bands that are way more sophisticated because they tour internationally. So some people might have a European kit, a South American kit. an Australian kit. But for us, we just do the 50 states, and sometimes we get ourselves into a pickle where the routing is, we're in Mexico. So the red drums went to Mexico for me to do the beach gig that we just did with Luke Bryan. He's got this big outdoor party called Crash My Playa.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And so the red kit went down to Mexico, and then meanwhile, my black kit is already on the way to South Carolina to do the opening of our tour on Thursday. So those drums are on that way. And then I have drums in cartage here that I do it on Music Row recording sessions, and I have drums at my condo, drums at my house, drums at another person's studio. I have drums in Los Angeles. It's just like you just start to acquire all this stuff. It's crazy. And I think over the course of my year, I've already gotten rid of like 10 kits, and I can't imagine if I kept all my drums. It's insane.
Wow. Something I noticed about your setup too is that over the years, if I look at older, less gray, more black hair, Rich Redmond, the cymbals are a little bit higher up.
Yep.
And now they're a little bit lower, and I'm thinking, okay, I know you're close to what, 50? I'm 51, and I know that I try to keep my cymbal, and at the end of it, my body's pretty sore. It's like, I say drumming's like a sport, man. Did you lower the cymbals because of ergonomics? Did you lower them because, you just got tired of the, reaching for it? You kind of changed the dynamics a little bit with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think, in the 80s, they were super high, like Steve Jordan and Gugu Chancellor, and then they just kept coming down. And I would say, maybe 15 years ago, they were higher for sport, and now they're much lower. Of course, a lot of my heroes are lowering their stuff, guys like Aronoff and these guys have really lowered things, because why take the chance on blowing out your rotator cuff,
Right.
Everything's just low and big and low.
Maybe it's a good time for me to ask you about Nia Czar. Then you worked with her, right? University of Windsor, and I talked to her about a month ago on this show. And does she report back to you like her findings about you, or does she just gather the information as far as
I burned about 1,000 calories in my 90-minute show, and my heart rate was up there for a lot of the performance. And so, that's kind of like my joke, is that, as a drummer, you're getting basically paid to work out,
It's not a bad thing.
A lot of health benefits to drumming.
I want to ask you, too, about somebody that inspired all of us was Neil Peart. So maybe just quickly on what he meant to you. Were you a Rush fan? Is it something that you followed, and what did he kind of mean for you as you were growing up drumming?
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, when I was coming up, it was like Neil, Kenny, and Stuart Copeland. It was like that same period of the 80s that were so super influential for me, as far as like soaking up these influences. Even guys like Carmine Appice, who's going to be teaching at my camp coming up. But, Neil was also the guy that had a household name, not even among drummers, but like musicians and just the housewives know, oh my God, everyone knows that the drummer for Rush is the guy, and so, you start listening to things like the press roll going into the first verse of Signals, or, the big monstrous licks at the end of Tom Sawyer or Limelight. It's like, man, this guy was a force to be reckoned with, and he really did inspire so many people. So he was definitely in the mix there with me in those early days, for sure.
So what is your, I guess, end goal, in the sense that, you're on a big tour, big act, you do a lot of things. What do you see now? Like, what's the next level? I know you're talking to Lindsay L about this, or she was mentioning, like, you're always reaching, right? You're never happy. You always want something else. What is that something else for Rich Redmond?
Love it. Well, I'm going to keep, playing drums till the cows goes home. I'm going to ride it into the sunset, and I love it, and I'm going to keep doing that. Aldean was voted Artist of the Decade, so I think it's almost like he has a responsibility to do another 10 years probably. So that's a wonderful thing. But I'm growing my motivational speaking business to the point where I want to be doing like no less than 24 appearances a year, and then I would like to be growing my acting thing to the point where I'm doing way more in TV and film, and maybe down the road being a series regular on maybe like a sitcom. I'm working towards that. And then getting my podcast to the point where we have like tons of listeners and more ads. Like we have a bunch of true believers now. My guests are true believers. my sponsor, the School of Rock, they're true believers. But you want to grow to the point where, we have people like Mercedes-Benz or Spotify or Squarespace or a toothbrush company, sponsoring the show. So we're working on that.
Nice. And finally, if you had to give advice, and I know this is vague, but to a guy or a girl who's growing up and 16 years old that wants to make it in music, real quick, like, what do you tell those people besides work hard and maybe learn everything you can?
Well, that's great advice right there. It's like, do it because you love it. Be patient. Work really hard, especially the younger you are, like get those tens of thousands of hours in, because it gets very difficult later in life as our responsibilities grow and things like marriage and children and all that kind of stuff. You got to get that time in the trenches early. And just more than anything, realize that it's about people, and meet those gatekeepers, people that are going to champion you, and always have a great attitude, because even if you aren't the greatest musician in the world, if you're friendly and positive and can take direction and you're likable and people want to be around you, you'll always have work. Always have work. I'm not worried about having work drumming for the rest of my life, because I worked so hard and put out such a consistent product that even if I'm just playing in a really awesome tribute band or playing weddings in my 70s, I'll always have somebody that wants to play with me, because I have a huge smile on my face and I love doing what I do.
Absolutely. You can tell every day. And you can catch Rich Redmond on tour starting the end of this month with Jason Aldean. I think the tour is a couple of months, maybe. From what I've seen.
February and March. Yeah.
And then what about the summer? I assume you're going to go on a summer tour.
February, March, and then we'll regroup in June, and then the fall will be a lot of touring, and I believe all the dates are at jasonaldean.com. And if you guys want to check out the new richredmond.com, REDMOND, I would love that, because I spent good money on it.
Making the investment in your career, as you say, right?
Invest in you.
That's right. Rich Redmond, thank you. All right, that wraps up another edition of the Industry 45 podcast show. Thanks to Mr. Rich Redmond for taking time. I know he's heading out tonight as the Jason Aldean tour opens in South Carolina. And everything Rich Redmond can be found at richredmond.com. As he mentioned, spent a lot of money on the website. Well, we're checking it out. So much great information there. And you've got to check out this book. As I mentioned in the podcast, I read it twice. Crash Course for Success, 5 Ways to Supercharge Your Personal and Professional Life. It's a great book, well worth the read. And if you're a company out there looking for a motivational speaker, Rich is your guy. Again, you can contact him through richredmond.com. Just a reminder, Industry 45 podcast show airs weekly. GiantTV.ca is the website. Industry 45 show is the name of the show. Also, you can check out all the podcasts at country89.com, giantfm.com, and now musiclifemagazine.net. Thanks for joining me. Till next time.